Welcome to the Splitting Hairs podcast presented by Jackrabbit Illustrated. I'm Kyle, and today we have a former player feature, my former teammate, Brock Campbell. Brock, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Kyle. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be
I
here.
appreciate you joining, man. All the way from Tampa, Florida.
Yeah.
How's the weather out there?
It's hot, man. It's already June 1st, and it's like 100 degrees out with the humidity and everything. So I'm not really looking forward to this summer. It's going to be long.
I hear you, man. Are you guys entering into hurricane season now? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think hurricane season starts here in the next maybe week. But so they say we're gonna have an active hurricane season. But I mean, it's just like I always tell my wife all the time. It's just like, we had tornadoes in the Midwest. So it's like tornadoes you can't prepare for. They're so quick. They come out of nowhere. And then hurricanes, you get at least a week's notice. So I mean, to me, it's just like the tornadoes are much worse than the hurricanes.
Absolutely, man. You traded some of the tornadoes for a little bit more sunshine and a lot shorter winter, huh?
Yes, I did. Yeah, there's not much winter here at all. So, but no, I love it down here. I don't miss the weather. I don't miss the snow, but I love the sunshine down here for sure.
I hear you, man. And I'd probably be remiss if we didn't shout out all the people that were affected actually in South Dakota from a huge weather event. I think they had a haboob there that really crushed a lot of living spaces in the rural areas out there. So our thoughts are with all the listeners. I know we got a ton of listeners in that region. Hopefully everybody made it out all right, and reach out if we can do anything for you.
Yeah.
Brock, are you impacted a lot by the hurricanes or even just the rains out there?
So, I mean, we'll get a lot of rain. I mean, I'm in Tampa. So I'm probably from the water, it probably takes me 15 minutes to get to the water, like the bay. To get to the actual beach, the Gulf, is probably going to take me about 45 minutes. So like we'll get a lot of rain, we'll get winds, we'll get down trees and stuff like that, and some flooding around where I'm at. But other than that, it's not like we're getting that coastal water and inland flooding, things like that. So
yeah, I gotcha. And now for fans who may not be familiar with you, you are an Iowa kid, right? From Cherokee?
yeah, I grew up, born and raised in Northwest Iowa, Cherokee, Iowa, small town in the northwest corner of the state. So
Nice. And so were you familiar with South Dakota State before you joined the squad? Or, I mean, I know we get a lot of recruits from Northwest Iowa and have had a lot of success with the Iowa Jacks, specifically in the D1 era.
yeah, no. So I mean, to be perfectly honest, I was not familiar with South Dakota State at all. Honestly, I never thought I'd go to college and play football. I always wanted to go to college and play basketball. Football just kind of had a really good senior season, and I realized I'm a 6'2", guard, I guess. In basketball, that doesn't work out long term very well. So the recruiting process, South Dakota State was one that was really kind of all over me from the get go. They'd actually offered me before my senior season. And the more and more I just got to know the coaches and everything like that, there was just that family atmosphere that I think we all know and grew to appreciate, was one of the driving factors that really kind of took me to Brookings. And, I really enjoyed my time there.
Yeah, so you were a versatile athlete in high school, played multiple sports then?
Yeah, so I played football, played basketball, ran track, played baseball. So when you're from a small school in Iowa, you play all sports. You don't really have time to take any time off. But I loved it. Track and field, I think, is probably the one thing that I miss the most.
Yeah.
That's an sport that I just absolutely love to watch in the Olympics. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the one sport I always missed throughout college. But obviously, really enjoyed my time playing football.
That's awesome, man. And who recruited you when you were going throughout the process from South Dakota State?
Yeah, it was who recruited me? It actually was Eric Eisness. It started out with Coach E. Yeah, and so Coach E was there before he recruited me until he took the job at Southwest Minnesota State. So once he took the job at Southwest Minnesota State, it was Coach Moore and then Coach Meadows actually were the other two that started recruiting me from there. So
that's awesome, man. And all of those coaches have gone on to have pretty stellar college careers. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So Coach E was not there when you and I were playing together.
And
then he left Southwest Minnesota State and took the OC, or actually he took the quarterback's job, then became the OC, and then was like a wizard for the Jacks at OC. And now he's at Northern Illinois doing the same stuff there. Just won a conference title, I think. So
yeah, no, I think when you look back at just all the coaches that were there from the times that I was there, I mean, you think you got, Coach Lee, who's the head coach at Vanderbilt, you got Coach Meadows, who's done really good things. You got Coach Moore's at Wyoming now, and, the list goes on and on. So I think, people see, obviously there's been some transition in the coaching staff here the last, couple months at South Dakota State, but I think what people can really lean on and understand and know is that they're going to bring in guys that are going to be high quality coaches. And a lot of times we're going to end up getting better coaches, as we continue to grow the program and we're a nationally relevant program. I mean, you're going to find coaches that want to come to South Dakota State because they're going to see a lot of opportunity to continue to grow their careers.
Yep. That, and talking to Jimmy this past summer, Coach Rogers, our former teammate, he was saying how it's highly sought after, not only the head coaching job, but there's stability, which obviously, in the coaching ranks, there's so much of a carousel, but as long as, the figurehead Coach Stig is there, Coach Rogers is there. Now he's been there almost like 10 years, I want to say. Which makes us feel old.
For sure. Well, I think Jimmy kind of embodies, South Dakota State football, right? I mean, he was part of the second D1 class, coming from Arizona. And, Jimmy was just that guy that you could just tell was going to be a head coach one day. And he's going to be. I mean, he's that guy that's writing game plans by himself on top of what the coaches were doing and handing it out to the guys. Like, you knew he had it in him. And I mean, there's a reason why our defenses are so successful now, with Jimmy running the show there.
And there's that it factor that you just see in people and you can't even really articulate. It just kind of bleeds through and then it impacts other guys on the field, right? Because I think it definitely had a different mentality as he shifted kind of into more of a leadership role with his play. And obviously from guys like you, Kubish, Justin Kubish of the world, Chris Johnson kind of fed off that too, a little more soft spoken, but just a freak nature athletically.
Yeah, and I think, when we came up, obviously got there in 2004, you look at the facilities, you look at the program. I mean, we weren't a powerhouse in Division II, right? Mm-hmm. I think we all I think I heard Stig say at one time is when we went from D2 to D1, we kind of drew a line in the sand and, so we're not looking back. We're going to be a successful program and we're going to move this thing forward. And, ultimately that was the goal that I read out my goals when I was a freshman. And it's by year 5, that was our first year that we could make the playoffs. And that was my goal. I wanted to help lead South Dakota State to a playoff appearance. And, obviously we fell short of that, but the next year we ended up getting our first playoff appearance. And obviously, everything's been rolling since. So, it's been awesome to see the program continue to rise and to be nationally relevant and, kind of beat down on some of these bigger schools and really show that people want to go to these big schools all the time and they don't realize that you want to go to places that you get A, playing time, and B, you're going to get developed. And I think you got a lot of those opportunities at South Dakota State. So,
yeah, even from a recruiting perspective specifically, right? You get a lot of these Power 5 schools that they hear of a kid who gets offered. He obviously passes the eye test, his film, no brainer. And then they jump on that offer train, that bandwagon type deal. But when you're looking at the FCS type caliber of recruitment, a lot of times they go under recruited and they get really, really well developed at these FCS institutions. And now in the current era, we have tampering occurring with NIL and things like that. And essentially they're using the FCS as a feeder. So just want to shout out, I don't know if you've followed it at all or been able to keep tabs on it, but we have a really good tight end, Tucker Kraft, who's actually experienced some tampering and some a little bit of foul play here and there, but he's, had good character. He knows what he wants and he's sticking with the Jacks.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at a kid like that, I mean, I follow football very closely still and everything. And, I happened to see that the other day and, good for him for, wanting to not follow the money and chase the money. He knows at the end of the day, if you can play, they're going to find you. I mean, that kid's going to be a high draft pick. He's good. He's going to be a good NFL player. I mean, look at Dallas Goedert. I mean, he came from South Dakota State and he just got absolutely paid. So, I mean, people got to realize that, the bright lights, now they are nice, right? I mean, you can go play in front of national audiences and everything like that. But if your ultimate goal is to get to the NFL and have a long-term career, you got to realize that you can get there from other places, and it doesn't have to be Alabama. It doesn't have to be a Georgia. It doesn't have to be a Minnesota. You can go to these FCS schools because in reality, if you look at the Missouri Valley Conference, it's a better conference than probably almost every Group of 5 school.
Yep, conference. Absolutely.
I mean, if you look at the MAC, I mean, the team that wins the MAC every year, I mean, no offense to the guys who left to go to Northern Illinois, they wouldn't win the Missouri Valley Conference every year.
They wouldn't.
They would not. I mean, I hate to say it. So, but people, they think, I'm gonna play at D1. I play Tuesday night football. I play on ESPN and stuff like that, and it's not always the best place. But everyone has to make their own decisions, right?
Yeah, and you got to find your best fit. So if that happens to be in the MAC, I mean, more power to you. I think the reality really is, though, when you're looking at a 16 game slate, potentially for those who make it all the way to Frisco, and you're looking at at minimum 12 to 13 games when you're looking at a caliber of the Jacks, and really more consistently 14, 15 year in and year out. That's a lot of development, right? That's an opportunity to get good film out there. That's an opportunity to get more practice time. I mean, the resources are there now at South Dakota State. Last week, I just interviewed the mental performance coach. Bro, when we were there, did you envision a mental performance coach ever being at South Dakota State?
No, I mean, but you know our facilities. I mean, we had the trailers. We had, we didn't have in-ground hot tubs and cold tubs and stuff like that. I mean, we literally had some kiddie paths out front during fall camp that people would hop in, and that's what you do. So, I mean, I think the guys today, I don't think they really understand and realize like the facilities and how well they have it. We were practicing outside in on ice fields, and now they have an indoor facility and probably one of the nicest indoor facilities in America. So I mean, these guys, I mean, they have a really good setup, and I would argue that they have better facilities than a lot of, again, going back to the Group of 5 schools. You look at their facilities and they are top notch.
Most definitely. And it really does help to be the only show really in the state with respect to not having an FBS school or a professional team that kind of competes for those eyes. There's a ton of great excitement and momentum around sports in general. I know the Sanford Pentagon, they're bringing Baylor, and was it Gonzaga? It's like Baylor.
Yeah, it was Gonzaga song.
Yeah. Baylor and Gonzaga are coming there in December. So it's like, there's a real hunger for elite sports competition. And, with guys like Goddard and Zenner and Pierre Strong, really, making hay in South Dakota, along with the dudes on the hardwood, Nate Walters and, all the, Mike Dom. It's really becoming, it's making a name for itself. It's to the point where I can walk around Texas, right? It was known for sports, with a Jackrabbit on my chest, and they don't get confused with some other schools anymore. They know which Dakota it is. So it's pretty
unfortunately, I will say down here they get confused with the Dakotas, and it drives me absolutely insane. But I mean, it's they also recruit very heavily down here. So
know, yeah. No, I just say think goats. When you're thinking goats, you think Vinatieri, right?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So like, I do want to highlight you were a part of the Division I transition.
Yep.
And I remember seeing you on campus, and you did you play hoops during that time period a little bit? You were a part of the Jackrabbit team for a period there.
Yeah, it was when obviously the whole situation happened, and they were dealing with some injuries and stuff. And so I think what was me, Wags, Mike Steffen, and Glenn, we would practice with the basketball team. And I went all the travel trips. I figured it was just, I didn't have to go to class. I mean, it sounds terrible, but I could go get some free trips around the country. And I mean, it was a good experience. Those guys, Coach Nagy, I just thought the world of him. I thought he was a great basketball coach, and obviously it's showing, where he's at Wright State now and everything. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was to me, that was kind of that other itch that I had. I always loved basketball growing up. And so the opportunity to go, see high level competition and stuff like that, throughout the country with those guys, I thought it was a good opportunity. So it was fun.
Well, and that really kind of opened my eyes to when I transferred in the caliber of athlete that we had. I mean, obviously Wags is a freak of nature with like 6'7", 250, ran 4.5 40, had a cup of coffee with Lane Kiffin's Raiders. Great tight end. You look at Fox, he could play offense. He played defense when I first got there to South Dakota State. He was on the hoops team. And Domino could hoop, and I wasn't even aware of that. Derek Domino, a great Jackrabbit backer. So
actually, like Jay Mitch, I think was probably the best basketball player on our entire team. But I if he's listening to this, I wouldn't want to ever tell him that, because I know he's a big head.
You'd never hear the end of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah. So then in 2005, was your redshirt freshman year?
It was. Yep. So
you played a little. You played receiver that year, right?
I did. Yeah, I came to school as a receiver, and I played receiver my true freshman year, or my redshirt year, and then my redshirt freshman year, and then I moved over to the other side of the ball starting in my sophomore year. Yep.
Yeah, so I remember we were on a trip to Nichols State in Louisiana. Yeah. And so we get off the bus, probably one of the hottest days I've ever experienced.
Yep.
All their fans, because Nichols was kind of a power at that point. They were ranked 25th in the nation, I want to say. We line up. We're kind of putting it on them. They're running, the traditional option offense. We're putting it on them. You make a tackle, and what happened, man? Walk us through that a little bit.
I missed the tackle, so that makes it even worse. Yeah. So I all it was, I just remember diving, and I thought I got the wind knocked out of me. Took myself out for like a play and just thought I was okay. And, about 3 hours later, come to find out it was a little bit worse than just getting the wind knocked out of me. So,
And was it you ruptured your spleen or?
yeah. Yep. I
So
ruptured
you
my
had to
spleen.
stay behind in Louisiana for that. We ended up getting the W, which was excellent.
Yep. Yep.
And then we won 7 straight, which was awesome. We were the cardiac jacks that
That's
year,
right. Yeah.
winning down to the wire. But you bounced back, and I think you just need a little bit more, around the midsection. You had too many abs. You had 12 abs, I think, back then.
I don't know. I don't know about that, but it's not like that anymore. I'll tell you that.
I hear you, dude. Well, yeah, I think the important thing to highlight there, obviously, I'm glad that you're better. But any of us who did play at that level, it comes with sacrifice. And unfortunately, sometimes in the working world, you can sacrifice, a bad idea here and there. Maybe you take a hit financially, hopefully not. But in football, you're sacrificing your body, and that's going to carry you and walk with you throughout the rest of your life. So you really have to be committed to it. There's no halfway commitment with football.
Yeah, 100%. I always, I have a little baby girl now, and I always remember telling my wife, like, I wanted a boy, but at the same time, like when you have a boy, you gotta actually, if he wants to play football, you have to be able to allow him to play football, and you got to make that decision. And it's like, I don't really know if I want to make that decision if I have a child boy, if he wants to actually play the game or not, because again, yeah, it does come with a lot, like you said. You can have some long-term injuries and effects from it. I mean, remember, look at Mike Steffen. When he that ankle injury that he has, that was probably the worst thing that I've ever seen playing football. And obviously he came back to have a great career and everything ended up being fine. But that you step on the field, there's injuries that are going to happen, and it's just like they're injuries that are probably not going to happen in any other sport. So,
yes, sir. And now, like when you look back, just transitioning from that, everybody makes a sacrifice for the ultimate goal, national championship. Now, you said we weren't able to reach the playoffs your senior year. We were friggin' close, though. Every single year you were there and I was there, except for one.
Yep.
We had a shot to win the Missouri Valley outright, or the Great West. Now, what was it like in high school? Did you win any championships? Were you?
No, we didn't. Honestly, like, our football program was terrible when I was in high school. So we tried to be a traditional running offense and, line it up with 2 tight ends and 2 receivers and, try to play power football. And, I think my freshman, sophomore, and junior seasons, we won 1 game each year. But we had a bunch of athletes. We had a bunch of athletes where we could play. And so my coach, in Northwest Iowa, in Texas, people were running 5 wide, 5 wide shotgun, throwing the ball everywhere, and he just made a complete change. And we ended up probably being one of the first in Northwest Iowa to basically just completely spread it out. We just got guys in space, and we had guys, moving. So, I ended up going to South Dakota State. One of my buddies went to Iowa to play tight end the year later. We had another receiver that, played at Wayne State for a period of time, but actually the kid went to USD. So we had some athletes, and that's what we needed. And we ended up winning 7 games my senior year. So, and then they were pretty good for a few years later than that, but we never won a championship, and that was the one thing that, I wanted more than anything was to either win a national championship or whatever it may be. But ultimately we fell short. So,
yeah, but then you transition to college. You're on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, we wanted to win a national championship, but the last year we were on probation as we were going to transition when we were Division I full transition. We did win a conference title, and you were a key factor in that secondary. So what was that like? Kind of walk people through that experience, because I think they see South Dakota State now and they expect the prominent program, but they don't understand necessarily what that 2007 team really did.
Yeah, and I mean, it was an interesting, because we were playing in a conference where we really had 4 or 5 conference games. So I mean, that was a little bit different than going through the Missouri Valley grind. But I think what that showed is that we can be that championship caliber type program. We'd never been there before. I don't know that how many title or conference championships South Dakota State had won prior to that.
One.
One, yeah. So I mean, even if it was maybe, it wasn't insignificant to the program, right? I mean, it was something that was, I think, huge for the program, and I think it showed kids that if they come here, like, this is a program that's on the rise, and they're going to do things. So yeah, I mean, and you think about that season, it continues to happen. North Dakota State was ranked number 1 in the nation. They were 11-0 going into that last game.
Yep.
And we won that game. And I think that continued to show people that we are on a program that is on the up is up and coming program, and we're going to be people are going to have to deal with us moving forward. And I think they're starting to see it now.
Absolutely. And then obviously the buy-in from the donors and the excitement around it being the only show on turf. And then you graduated, we were able to experience that championship as a team from a conference perspective. Senior year, man, we did have some really good success here and there in spurts, and we were all the way up to the last game of the year when we beat North Dakota State in Fargo. What was that experience like for you? Because I know obviously you still to this day, not a lot of teams have success up there. And for you to experience that as a senior, that had to be pretty special. It was for me, and I was an underclassman.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the week before, kind of took the air out of me a little bit. That we lost to Southern Illinois, I believe. I think they kicked the field goal as time expired, and that knocked us out of the playoff race. It really did. I mean, if we win that game, we make the playoffs after winning the next week. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously that North Dakota State game, if you look at it, I think Ryan Berry threw a touchdown to Mike Steffen, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of the game to win it. So yeah, I mean, it's just it couldn't have been a better way to end it. Go out on top against your rival. Bring the code marker home again. I think it was for the second straight year, and just be able to finish a career and on top. Not losing your last game there and actually winning the Dakota marker against your rival. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. I thought it was a good experience, and that's a tough place to play. I mean, it was then, and it still is now. So
definitely. And then so you keep preparing. You kind of you did get robbed of a year there in the middle, or a significant chunk of playing time due to that injury that you sustained in Nichols. And so you still had that itch you were telling me about. So talk about what transpired that led you to the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, honestly, like I was thinking about this the other day, and I remember like our last meeting in the locker room, and Danny Batten actually asked me. I remember him, "Are you done playing?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I'm done." And he's like, "No, man, go play arena, go do something." And it was like, you know what, I should, and I want to. And I moved to Florida about 4 months after I graduated. Took a job at Wells Fargo Financial, just continued to train every day. Like I said, I ended up meeting some people that introduced me to agents, and one thing led to another, and I ended up getting an opportunity to go play in Canada. It was actually 3 years after I was done, and I was up there for a season. And it was a good experience. It kind of got that itch that I had to continue to play after college. I don't think I would have spent a lot of years up in Canada. I think it was different because you're not playing with your friends. I mean, it's a business. Every day, there's an opportunity for you to go home. So it's a true business. It wasn't like playing with your friends in college and going out having fun with them on the weekends and then practicing all week and things like that. So it was a good experience, and it kind of just showed me like whatever I put my mind to, like I can accomplish and I'm going to do. So I think that's what I've taken, just pushing forward in just the business world in general now.
That's awesome. Yeah, and obviously it's a testament to your ability to stay fit and in game shape to be able to, have a little hiatus like that, but then be able to step right onto the field and contribute. Because what club were you up with up there?
Yeah, so I played for Hamilton. I played for the Tiger Cats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you played. It wasn't just like you were part of the team.
Yeah, I started the second week that I was up there. I actually was a league player of the week, the third week I was starting, and then got a concussion a couple weeks later and played about 6 more games. And then they made a trade for a guy that they wanted to play. It's just the nature of professional sports, right? And then, I ended up getting sent home, but it was the best thing. My grandfather was going through a situation with Alzheimer's and Lou Gehrig's disease. And actually he had about 3 weeks to live, and I got to spend those 3 weeks with my grandfather after it. So like I always say, everything happens for a reason. And honestly, like if I didn't get to spend those 3 weeks with my grandfather, who I was very close with, it would have sucked. So I was very appreciative of my time up there, but I was also appreciative of the time I got to spend with my grandfather at the end of his life too.
Yeah, that's good perspective, man, because it's always bigger than the game, to
100%.
some degree. It's hard to let go of that, when you devote so much time. And, it's also probably a good testament that you didn't have to specialize in high school playing football, because it can kind of consume you, like coming from the South where I grew up, and it can skew your perspective on priorities a little bit because it demands so much of you. But once that's taken away, you realize life, there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more that goes into it than just what's between the hashes. So,
yeah. And I mean, you obviously live in Florida, you grew up in Georgia, and you live in Texas now, and football's everything, right? I mean,
Yep.
these kids are one track minded. They want to play just football. And even the coaches here, I mean, I hear it I work out in the gym, and my buddy trains a bunch of NFL guys, and a bunch of high school kids come through there. And it's always like the high school coaches only want them to play football. Won't let them run track, won't let them play basketball, won't let them play baseball. And I'm just like, these kids are specializing in one sport. There's one movement that they're doing. And there's
Bingo.
a reason why none of them end up being, not none of them, a lot of them don't end up being that successful. And they always end up getting hurt in college because
Yeah.
their body is only used to one movement and one movement only. And I think it's actually a detriment to kids. I think
Yeah.
college coaches want to see kids who are multi-sport athletes anyways, because there's just a lot of things that come with it, I think, that are actually beneficial, especially on the football field.
Well, and to make that tangible, there was a study done that compared athletes in the SEC and Southern states. Their biological age was like 30,
Yeah.
but their actual age due to the trauma they sustained was like 60 due to the impact and the demands and just their ability to generate force output because of the competition there and having to adapt to that environment versus other athletes coming from, a more varied mixture of sports that they were partaking in is much healthier. It's because it keeps the body more agile, right? Versus specialization.
And I would argue that if you look at you look at the NFL rosters, there's a ton of FCS players on NFL rosters, right? And I think a lot of that is they just develop different, right? It's just, I develop different. You develop different than most people. Obviously, you started out at a larger university, and obviously you were built a lot different than I was, obviously. But you look at a lot of these kids, like just look at the guys at Alabama. Most of those guys are fully developed by the time they get to Alabama. They're not getting any better, and then, I mean, you have strength coaches who are probably not the best strength coaches, and literally all they have to do is just try not to get them hurt. So guys aren't getting developed. And, in some of these smaller schools, they're getting more playing time. They're getting developed in the weight room. And I think that's the key to success and having a long-term, NFL career too, because I mean, look at the guys, look at some of these programs, they don't come from big programs, and they're having these long NFL careers. And I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah. And I think it's great for the player now that you have NIL because you look at guys that retired real early. I know there was a linebacker out of Wisconsin who retired early from the 49ers due to head injuries. And you look at all these other things, running back would be a great example. If you got a guy who's carrying the ball at a prominent institution for 3 or 4 years and he's just taking shots, he may have a very short-lived NFL career, right? And that means his ability to earn a living at that level for his family diminishes. Well, now you have NIL. That guy can earn probably not the same, but really close to a nice living that he would in the NFL at a major institution. And now even FCS institutions, there's guys signing deals for, $10, $15, $20,000 here and there, a month, potentially 6-figure deals. So it's like, it is good for the athlete. They just got to figure out some of the finer tuning to make sure there's no tampering and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think, look, I mean, that's going to happen. I think there's so many iterations that are going to come down on this. I mean, I know a parent here who has a son who transferred from a West Coast school to a school in the Southeast. And they offered him 6 figures just to transfer. I mean, it was literally just college kid. I mean, he's a college kid. I mean, he was a highly rated recruit and everything like that. But I mean, it's just like, you think these guys they're making 6 figures. I mean, look at the kid that, committed to Tennessee. He got an $8 million NIL deal. He's a junior in high school. I mean, I think, there's going to be some things that they're going to have to do to kind of rein these boosters in a little bit. But, to your point, I think it is really good that guys can get compensated for some of these things. And, they don't have to get, paid under the table at some of these larger universities, like everyone knows already been happening for the last 20 years. Now it's just out in the open. It's really all it is.
Exactly. So what are some of the things you're excited for about the future of Jackrabbit football? Have you kind of followed closely throughout the years? It sounds like you're well versed.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I do tune in, and I will watch them every weekend. I definitely do that. I haven't been back to a game probably since, probably been 2011 since the last time we've been to a game at South Dakota State. But
did you watch?
I did. Yeah, that was heartbreaking. Yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow. Getting scored on with about 5-6 seconds left in the game.
Yeah.
That was a tough pill to swallow. But yeah, no, I mean, I think we have a really good program. I think we're obviously a lot deeper at the skill positions than we ever have been. We have the ability to actually, we have more athletes now. I mean, we had some
Yeah.
guys that were athletes. You know, you had the Jerron Harrises. You know, that
Yeah.
could blow by and run by anybody. We had some solid DBs that were athletic, but I think you just look at the athleticism and the depth of athleticism that we have now, and you look at just across our lines. Our lines are much
Yeah.
bigger. They're much stronger, and ultimately, that's where the game's won.
Mhm.
Even if you're a spread team or the game is won at the line of scrimmage still today. I mean, and
Yep.
if you don't have guys that can get to the quarterback and you don't have guys that can protect the quarterback, ultimately you're not going to be able to win national championships. Like, that's the ultimate goal that we're looking for. So yeah, I mean, I think that the program is in really good hands. I'm going to say it. Hopefully, Jimmy Rogers better be the next head coach at South Dakota State. Otherwise, I
Yeah.
think that's a travesty personally. But
Yeah.
that's just my opinion. But no, I think and even like you look at like Zach Lujan, the new offensive coordinator. I mean, I was with Jimmy back in 2018. He was in Charlotte for a coaches convention. He pointed him out. And he said he was a GA at the time. He said that kid's gonna be good. That's 4 years ago. And now hopefully he's got the opportunity to run the show. And I think JD came back, if I saw that correctly. He's
Yes, he
receivers coach
did.
and the passing game coordinator. So yeah, I mean, I think the opportunity that South Dakota State has to continue to be in that upper tier of FCS schools and compete for national championships. Because ultimately, like, look, we've been to the semifinals, we've been to the national championship. Like, our people can. Hey, you get to a national championship, you get to the semifinals, you're one of 4 teams, one of 2 teams, whatever it may be. I mean, it's a good season, right? But I think everybody, every player, every former player, we all want that national championship. We all want that. And I think that was, ultimately we'll get there. I think we're going to get one. I just think it's tough seeing the team up north continue to win them, and we haven't got one yet. So,
yeah, man. And like the other thing, talking to Coach Rogers, is you look at a lot of luck has to go into it. I mean, you look at Montana State. Really, their quarterback blew his knee, ankle, something like that. I think he rolled his ankle really bad. Mark Gronowski, first series of the game, that kid was the most dominant player that entire season. Just an absolute X factor. And you look, the ball has to bounce your way sometimes. And unfortunately, in pivotal moments, it's kind of teetered the other way. But also that can be the biggest motivating driver behind what inspires the next championship team to roll through. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times, number one, it is money. North Dakota State has huge donors. You look at just talent pool and fan support. They're in a city of about 200,000. South Dakota State has about 20,000 in bookings. So, I mean, like, if you look at overall output, we put everybody in the nation to shame when it comes to just actual output for such a small place. And then you look at, driving factors, big donor support, the Bold and Blue campaign, $500 million set to be raised is their ambition. You got the brand new bank opening up, TCF or not TCF, First Bank and Trust Arena, what will replace Old Frost Arena. So, I mean, there's a lot of momentum just pushing in the right direction to eventually hopefully knock down that last pin, that last domino for the Natty on the football field.
Yeah, and it's ultimately just staying healthy, right? I mean, that you look at back-to-back, maybe it was back-to-back years. I think that quarterback, that Gibbs kid, in that North Dakota State game, we don't lose that game if that kid does. And
he was taking very good off of them, dude.
But he had a non-contact ligament knee injury, and then Mark Gronowski had a non-contact ligament knee injury.
Yeah,
which that shouldn't happen. It's just like, you develop kids correctly. Those non-contact injuries, I think, are very tough to deal with. And I mean, so it's staying healthy, right? Like Jimmy said, like you said, he pointed out, it's a little luck. You got to have no matter what it takes, a little luck. And I think a lot of that luck is actually staying healthy. This year, I think we just ran out of gas, right?
Yeah.
You play how many
26 games. Yeah, in a calendar year, that's insane.
That's unbelievable. Like the fact that they continue to stay as healthy as they did and actually get to where they got. Kudos to those guys for really, putting their bodies on the line that's a lot of games. That's a lot of football.
And that's a good opportunity for us to shout out the JFPA, the Jackrabbit Former Players Association. So for those listening who may have played before, not a member of that, get with Ryan McKnight, Alex Parker, Andrew Hugavine, anybody to set up your membership, because those funds, I think we dropped a check for $50K to the football program this past year. Those funds went to actual quality meals, not just, donuts and ho-hos after the game or whatever. It actually went to 3 meals, I want to say, for the guys to be able to fuel properly. And, you know, fueling properly, sleeping properly, hydrating, those little things are what prevent injuries down the road when you're in, you know, December playing ball. So yeah, shout
Yeah, I
out to
mean,
them.
so that they're not eating Fruit Loops at night at Benowese, you know, Hall. So
Exactly.
that's a little different. We didn't get the meal plans like that. So,
Yeah.
but I think to your point, that's a big reason why guys are able to stay healthier. Guys are able to be developed. You know, they're getting fed correctly. If you're not getting fed as a football player in college with everything that you're burning, I think it's very tough to continue to develop the way you should.
Well, and that was the hardest part I want to say for our defensive and offensive lines, because Coach Mo is a beast at conditioning guys, but just to be able to maintain that weight and afford to eat the way we needed to eat to be able to retain
Yeah,
that weight, it was
yeah,
fighting an uphill battle on roller skates. So
yeah, for sure.
I think the new life, you know, I don't know, were you there when Matt Jacobs was there when as a GA?
So Matt was there, I think maybe a year or two when I was there, if I'm not mistaken. So I personally, I don't remember him like personally, like
Yeah.
conversating and everything, but I do remember him, his name and everything. So
Yeah. So he's a good product of the product, right? Like lean, like in shape dude. I'm sure, you know, his travels and stuff and just having some youth behind him will be able to inject a little bit of life and a fresher perspective into the game. You know, Coach Mo did a lot for the program.
yeah,
But I think it's a good new direction, and we'll see what the kid can do. I'm sure he's hungry to lead a program outright. So it'll be
yeah, no,
exciting.
yeah, I think it's good. I mean, change is good. I mean, having a different perspective, I mean, I think in 2004, I mean, I think the one way that I hear this all the time is like, you know, we had probably a bunch of Ford trucks, right? And
Yeah.
you can't train a bunch of Ford trucks, and you can't train Ferraris like you can Ford trucks and work them the same way. So I think that the athlete has changed. So I think having a different perspective, you know, having somebody that's been at larger programs, being able to work with better athletes, I think that's going to make a difference. I really do. So
Yeah, man. And I think were you like a business econ major at South Dakota State?
I was an economics major. Yep.
Yep, and I was on the health side, health promotion side, and one thing that people don't really know is when you're completing the D2 transition to D1 that we were kind of just shaking off that last little bit of D2. Coach Conklin was a coach. Coach Sarvis had to coach classes. Those coaches were coaching classes.
Coach Lee was too.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, you know, Coach Conk, he was a D coordinator at Pitt, and now he's the head coach at Wofford. So it's like, man, like these are guys that you have to want it when you were at that transitional point for South Dakota State, and they did. They're earning their stripes.
That's it's not an easy career. I mean, to be a coach, and you know, recruiting now is 365 days a year. You know, with the transfer portal and the early signing period, the late period, like I mean, it's a 365-day a year job, and you know, I couldn't do it, you know, personally, but you know, kudos to everyone who's out there really doing it and grinding. So keeping our program afloat.
That's right, man. So when's the next time you're going to be up in Brookings? Do you do the golf tournaments or anything like that? I know it's kind of a hike from Tampa, especially with a daughter.
Yeah, I've actually never been to one since I've graduated. Honestly, I'm
Is
going
that
back
because
to
you're scared
Iowa.
of golfing?
No, I'm not scared of golfing. I live in Florida. How many golf courses are out here? I'm
Yeah,
not saying I'm
exactly.
good and I play a lot, but I'm not scared of golfing for sure. But no, so I mean, I'd love to get back to a game. I think unfortunately, a lot of times, you know, my brother's in college athletics. A lot of times, I'm going and watching his guys play when I'm traveling and stuff too. And I'm going
Where's
to be
he at?
back. He's at Austin P is where he's at. So he's
Oh,
assistant
nice.
athletic director of strength and conditioning for the football program there. Before that, he
I
was at
didn't know that. I
Houston.
need to get down there. I
Yeah, he
didn't.
was at Houston for 5 years prior to that. So, so I spent a lot of time in Houston, and now recently I've just been going to Tennessee to their games and stuff. But yeah, no, I'm going back to Iowa for my brother's actually getting married to the lakes, you know, over the 4th of July. So we try to get back to the lakes every 4th. Spend about a week up there. My mom lives up there now, and that's really about my one trip that I get back to the Midwest typically a year. So I'd like to get back there a little bit more, maybe in the fall. But I do need to get back to a game for sure.
Yeah. Well, family comes first. That's a good priority and
Yeah.
good excuse. So we'll let that slide. It's a good out. I don't
Yeah.
have any kiddos yet, so I'm pretty flexible on being able to get back when I can.
I guess it's family and work now these days. It's kind of changed a little bit. Life has changed.
I hear that. So do you mind sharing a little bit about what you're doing in the professional realm these days?
Yeah. So I work for a software development company. So we build software for businesses. So we work with like pure startups where They think of somebody who has like a back of the napkin idea and they need somebody to design it and build it. Think like one day, somebody need to build Uber at one point. Like that's what we do. Although working through like Fortune 500 companies and help some of their software development needs internally. So I'm running sales. I'm the first employee hired down here in Florida. I'm getting ready to kind of build out Florida, build the team out down here, and I'm looking forward to it. You know, it's kind of an early stage company. We're about 4 years in, 350 employees. We'll probably be close to 500 by the end of the year, and it's a pretty good opportunity that I'm looking forward to continue helping these guys grow, and excited about the future with it.
That's awesome, man. So in terms of sales, talk about that process. How do you pinpoint some potential candidates to work with?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't do any cold calling. To me, you know, your network is your net worth. So, you know, I really lean on my network. So I really, you know, have a mindset in sales of like, you know, servant leadership. You know, the more I give, the more it comes back on me. So I really try to help as many people out as I can. Have a really deep, strong network of individuals. Created a good network here in Tampa. Just been here about 12 years now. So it's really helped. I've kind of really been ingrained in the community, and that's really where I get my sales from. It's just really kind of just my network and just really being involved in the community and helping out as much as I can.
Absolutely. And software is definitely the name of the game, the digital commerce realm, and just being able to really scale up rapidly without holding a lot of inventory and stuff like that. That's
Yeah,
going to be
and
the transition.
100%. Everyone's trying to build something right now. I mean, if you know, I talk to HR companies, like, you know, these HR companies are trying to build technology platforms internally, and because they want to call themselves a tech company, right? You know,
Yeah.
so if I have a tech company, I can sell it for much more than I can a services company. So,
Mm.
you know, it's really interesting the way technology is moving. And I don't know if you follow crypto and, you know, blockchain, all that stuff. I mean, everything is changing, and that's you know, Miami tries to be the blockchain crypto capital of the United States, and it's the Web3. It's coming fast, and I think it's a real thing, and so I'm excited about that. I find that to be very, very interesting, and it's a big part of what we're doing here too. So
Yeah, man, I'm big into cryptography. I think it's very liberating. I think it's yeah,
I
I could go
I hope
on.
I hope you didn't have a lot of money invested in Luna. That's all I can say.
I did not.
Good for you.
I think there's only one that really separates itself from a robustness, and that's Bitcoin. I'm not an idealist though. I don't think any one is going to win out, especially when you have a governing body that can regulate you at the drop of a hat. Um,
So
so
this is what I would say. This is why I look at it. So like you have all these coins. Everyone loves the Doge coins of the world and everything like that. It's trash, right? I mean, you get all these people who are just, but like there's some like serious software projects. I think that's the way you need to look at it. Like they're not coins. Like you have Bitcoin, Ethereum. Bitcoin's essentially a coin, right? But
it's a property,
Bitcoin is
I
the
think.
blockchain.
Yeah.
It's the blockchain, right? You have Ethereum, you have Cardano, you have Solano. Like these are legitimate software companies, and that's what I think people just need to look at them as. Not necessarily like a crypto coin, but like they're real software projects behind them. And I
Mhm.
think that's what's actually going to drive the future and stuff. So
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the best way to understand Bitcoin overall, I think if you separate the wheat from the chaff and understand that as an entity,
yeah,
it's really a property. Obviously,
yeah,
it is like you're saying blockchain, but it's a property. The SEC is regulating it as a property as well. So
yeah,
I think that's really important because that means like it's not like a fiat, which is just by decree.
yep,
So you can't in there. There's only 21 million, so it's scarce, much like gold.
yep,
You know, there's only a finite amount produced every year. I think 1% of gold, roughly, which is what creates its value. And
yep,
if you look at the degradation of currency in different places, it rises and falls based on the security of their leadership and the security of just various factors. So allowing the market to truly dictate prices, we don't even do that in America, right? Because
yeah,
if you generate more money into circulation,
yep,
it devalues the currency. So then how do businesses know if I set my price on what day is today, Wednesday? If I set my price with you on a Wednesday, but yet the government puts more money in circulation on a Thursday, well, then that screws up my whole pricing model on that Wednesday, you know?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a fascinating world. I mean, it's the early internet, like everybody says. I mean, you have a lot of these founders. We have a guy that we work with, and he was early on in the internet, the .com, you know, early '90s. He sold a web company back then, and he is all in on this. Like he just
Yeah.
he sees this as the exact same as the early '90s, the internet boom, and when you start seeing guys who are continually saying that, like they've seen it before, and it's just like there's something here, right? So it's just can you people a whole bunch of people made a whole lot of money on it. A bunch of people lost a lot of money just because they kind of went with the masses, and so yeah. But I think it's very interesting.
No, it's kind of cool. We went down that rabbit hole, pun intended, because
Yeah,
I think there's an awesome book to read that's very prophetic. It was prophetic in the early 90s. It's called The Sovereign Individual, written by the guys who created the internet, that kind of predicted the trends that that have since already happened. And then, like you're talking about Web3 and the cryptography boom that we're about to see, it's very telling. But to kind of tie it back to your experience at South Dakota State, did you enjoy your class work at South Dakota State in econ?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I guess I don't really utilize economics, like micro macro economics per se, on a daily basis. I don't work at a bank or anything like that, but the overall like education that I felt like that we got at South Dakota State, I think was top notch. I thought I had very good professors. I thought it was a very good education. The one thing that I wish I would have done is got my MBA while I was there. Going through. I think that would have been something that would have, now going back to get your MBA, I started to get my MBA a couple years back, and it was a lot. You're trying to work full time and trying to go to school at night, and it was just a lot. So I wish I would have done that, about 15 years ago. But at the end of the day, it's not nothing. But yeah, ultimately, like, I did enjoy my time. I thought it was a good education. I thought it was a good place to be.
Yeah, no, there's so many great resources online now that really, I mean, I think MBA, you get that accreditation.
Yeah.
And that creates a lot of value in and of itself. But then if you look at all the resources online, like, you can learn more for free as it relates to business, and just overall micro and macroeconomics, how to apply them, as opposed to just, going into debt and getting that MBA. So I would encourage those of you, though, who can get it either on the school's dollar or through scholarships, or, if you're going to pay for it yourself, I would encourage you to get it close to the time when you complete your undergrad, because I feel the same way as you.
Yeah, it was hard going back and just I mean, I had been out of school this was what, 2016. So I've been almost 8 years at that point. So,
Yeah.
it was hard getting back into the study habits and going to class for 3 hours a night after working all day. And but yeah, I mean, and I agree with you. I think you can learn so much online today. Just listening to podcasts, like, I listen to podcasts all day when I'm driving. That's kind of like, that's where I get my source of information. I hate watching the news. I don't think it provides any value anymore. So yeah, you
What do
can
you
learn
listen
so
to?
much. So I'm really heavy right now on this podcast called 20 VC. So it's a VC, a guy who has a VC firm. Actually, he's in the United Kingdom, and he interviews other VC LPs, throughout the world. I think it's just very fascinating. I work a lot with startups, so I think it's just very interesting to understand kind of the market dynamics, where things are going. I love How I Built This, and
Yeah.
also Masters of Scale. Those are like the three podcasts that I lean in heavy to.
Those are good. So very professionally based. Do you have any, like, personal development, self-help, I guess you'd call them, or entertainment?
Honestly, I don't. I listen to a lot of business stuff. I mean, I'm kind of a nerd like that.
That's cool.
My wife drives me crazy. She like looks at the books that I read, and she's like, "How do you read this stuff?" But I don't know. I love finance books. I love all
Yeah.
stuff like that.
You know
So
what you're into. That's good stuff, man. And
100%.
so what does she do professionally? Is she involved in anything similar?
Yeah, she's a stay-at-home mom, is what she is now.
That's a
So
full-time
yeah,
job, dude.
full-time job. Yeah, yeah. No, she worked for a family business for a number of years. They manufacture spices and blends for cruise lines, restaurants, things like that. She did marketing operations for them. But once we had the baby, I told her it was just, I didn't want to have to send her to a daycare. Like,
Yeah.
she can spend time with her throughout the day and continue to raise her. So she's now a stay-at-home mom, and I kind of handle everything from the work side.
Good Midwestern values making their way down to Tampa. I see.
I try to.
It's good stuff, man. Well, yeah, I think it's interesting to, like, seeing what guys' personalities, like, evolve into post playing days, and seeing what they kind of take on as their new challenges, so to speak, off the football field. And I would definitely say, had I learned a lot more about finance earlier, I could have made some more strategic moves and set myself up better. But better late than never. Never late is better, right? So right now I'm kind of in that spot where financial literacy is huge.
Absolutely.
I would encourage folks to really understand what fiat is.
Yeah.
First and foremost, so you understand our current system, and then what are some things you could point maybe the younger kids in college to that's digestible for them?
Yeah, and I think just investing, just start investing. Learn how to invest. I mean, you start investing early. I think there's so many there's so many ways to invest now that you don't have to have somebody. You don't have to have a lot of money. You can do it
Yeah,
through like these, acorns, various things like that. But just learning that world and learning how the markets work, I think is an important thing to learn early and often. And I think that'll just set you up for success. Learn about mortgages, go buy property,
yeah,
do all those things. Those are how you set yourself up for success.
definitely. Yeah, I do acorns, but for those folks who don't know, can you give them the simple version of what it
Yeah,
is?
I mean, it's literally I can basically you go buy something at Starbucks and it costs 4.50. Basically, you can take that extra 50 cents and invest it into stocks. So,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, you're starting to see it more in like crypto now too. We're working with a company that's actually doing that for cryptocurrencies, to where it's kind of an acorns model where you can invest your money in crypto. And yeah, you're seeing a lot of more social investing applications out there as well. So they're kind of making it like more the what's the like Discord,
Yeah.
Twilio, various things like that where so there's a lot more social investing apps but I think it's very hard not to find something where you can start doing some investments and really starting to build some wealth that way.
I got a question for you to that end. Do you see crypto as a medium of exchange or more of a property? Like, because right, you have to have so many in circulation to be able to
Yeah.
really use it as a valuable medium of exchange, so it doesn't tank like Luna.
Yeah, well, I think Luna I think that was a pump and dump scam. I
Yep.
think there's a lot of pump and dumps out there right now, but I think that's a good question. I mean, I think time will tell. I mean, I
Yeah.
think there's a market reset going on right now. I think a lot of the companies that were there in 2018 are no longer there, like when the last bear market happened. And I think there's a lot of consolidation that's going to happen currently, in that market. But there's going to be continually, there's going to be new companies consistently built. Are they more like currencies that we're actually going to utilize on a day-to-day basis, or are they more kind of like software companies and
Yeah.
more like like the new age AWS of the world and
Yeah.
Google Cloud platforms, things like that? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a good question. I can't say that I'm knowledgeable enough to really kind of answer that or even
Same.
have a really solid opinion on it, to be perfectly honest.
Same. And that's kind of, I think, probably where a lot of people fall. Like if we don't understand it, it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to navigate. So would you say that it'd be good to kind of dabble in some intro or intermediate computer science literature to understand blockchain
Yeah, I mean,
or crypto?
I think just researching blockchain in general, I think is to me, it's very interesting and I think it's fascinating. There's so many applications to it. I think long term. I mean, everyone like the NFT world right now, right? I mean, everyone thinks NF. I mean, people are selling like digital images now for millions of dollars, which I
Mhm.
mean, I don't think there's a long term use case for that. But then you start looking at NFTs and they're talking about NFTs. For example, we just built a platform for the guy I was telling you about, and it's around digital seat licenses, right? So think of PSL seat licenses. A lot of these professional sports teams have these
Yeah.
PSL seat licenses. Well, in Europe, where he's starting, these smaller soccer franchises don't have PSL seat licenses. So what he's doing is he's selling the seat as an NFT, and the person who buys that seat, every time the seat is sold for a match, there can be various things sold with it. That person who owns the NFT is actually making money on that.
Yep. That's Gary
What?
Vaynerchuk's model. I think
Yeah,
that's a really good model personally.
yeah. I mean, but then you have these people selling all these like bored apes and stuff like that. Yeah, those people made a lot of money, but at the end of the day, like I don't see that as a long term value. But
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of value in understanding what blockchain is. I think you're starting to see it more and more within. You're going to start seeing in healthcare, right? The blockchain and people being able to control, because that's what it is. People being able to control their documents and their personal information,
Right.
on ledgers and basically being able to
Encrypted.
encrypted. Yeah. So, yeah, I would definitely say I, since I work for a software development company and I'm not a tech person myself, I go to Code Academy and I learn like SQL, I learn like Java, I learn React, and those are all coding languages, but it helps me have conversations with companies and individuals who are building things and building products. Because if you really look at if you look at code and you look at coding language, it's all logic and it's all math. Like
Yeah.
it's logic. I mean, people think that just kind of like the nerds per se, or like, you know, the developers and stuff, they're some of the brightest individuals you will meet.
Mm.
You know, they really, they may not be extroverted, they may be more introverted, but the knowledge that they have on just logic, math, and just how companies work, it's fascinating. It really is. So
Yeah, it's an applicable language to every domain of life,
it is.
really. And it's input output, so they know how to tell it what to do and
Yeah.
generate the output in the product that they want. And you can put it
Yeah.
on any system really, which is really intriguing. And that's what I'm so fascinated with blockchain, because it's so secure.
Yeah.
And then ideally in a situation like Bitcoin, it's so secure and it doesn't have a central figurehead, which is
Yeah.
nice.
I mean, if I'm 18 years old all over again and I'm going to college, I am learning to code,
Yep.
and I am learning that, like, no doubt about it. I mean, there's so much money to be made as a developer because there's such a lack of developers out there.
Mhm.
There's so many different roles that you can have by just truly understanding that, from a product side, from finance, wherever. I mean, you can really have, there's a lot of different roles in there. But yeah, if I could go back,
Yeah.
I would say I would have a greater understanding of all that stuff for sure.
Yeah, I probably would have done the same thing, man. I probably gone computer science if it fit enough of my personality. I'm pretty extroverted. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm good at math, but I'm more verbal in my
Yeah.
disposition. And then I
Yeah.
think I would have gone computer science and then probably business or economics on top of that,
Yeah.
layered into that, because then you can see how to apply it. And I think there's a lot of South Dakota State too, because it's kind of, and in the Midwest overall, there's a lot of gain to be had because usually things happen more slowly in those
Yeah.
areas. There's a
Yeah.
lot of gain to be had in this domain for them. If they wanted to hop into even like you're talking about seat licensing and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think there's just a lot of opportunity there, right? I mean, you know, as it continues to grow, I mean, think about all the ag companies there. How many ag tech companies could be spun off, you know, long term out of there just because they understand the farming process? So you're starting
Bingo.
to see so much of that stuff. Like, you know, I think there's in every corner of the United States, there's different, you know, opportunities that we have, and I think there's a tremendous opportunity up there. I mean, it's small and sleepy up there, you know, just because it's people consider it the Midwest, but I think there's Sioux Falls is growing. You know, that's a feeder place from Brookings and stuff like that too. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, that the Midwest, I think you should be very bullish on. People are moving there. People don't want to be on the coast anymore. They're moving out of California. They're moving out of New York.
Yep.
They don't want to be in the big cities because you can work from anywhere these days.
Great migration. And for those who don't know, if you got kids who are considering colleges, I was talking to when I was with Sparta Science, I was talking to a gentleman living in Montana, and he was asking all about South Dakota State,
Yeah.
and like he has a daughter who's looking to go to school, and I guess Montana has reciprocity too,
Yep.
in terms of tuition. So for folks who are looking at that too, South Dakota does not have state income tax,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So
Right.
that's a luxury. Florida doesn't either, right?
Does not. It does not,
You
which is
can't
huge.
shovel, yeah, and you can't shovel sunshine. So,
That's the you have to deal with a little bit of rain and humidity, but I mean, it's ultimately you don't have to pay taxes on your income, your state income tax. It's kind of nice.
quit moving to Texas, go to Florida or South Dakota here. That's my push.
Yeah, you just don't want people to come to Texas. You don't want California to become Texas.
Yeah, it's starting to happen. It's already, and we might already be there, which is fine. I love people from Cali. My family's out there. It's just there's so many darn people here already that
Yeah.
it's like just overpopulated, and like really we're having trouble with the infrastructure, like moving people in and out, which is one thing that South Dakota, Brookings especially, has not had an issue with.
And
That was such a luxury, being able to just wake up, get in the car, and go wherever
yeah,
you want to in 5 minutes.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, think about it. Like I told you earlier, it's going to take me 30 minutes to get back home. I was probably 10 miles from my house. I was downtown. You know, I was not very far, and then 30 minutes would have got me to Sioux Falls from Brookings. You know, so it's kind of
Man.
crazy. So,
Well,
but
man, that's wild. But Brock, we appreciate you jumping on the
yeah,
pod. This has been an awesome former player feature. I think I learned a lot, shoot, just from a financial perspective, but also
yeah,
really cool seeing your trek. I know you're not a guy who's really outwardly facing, so it's cool to learn more about your CFL endeavors. And
yeah.
it was really cool playing with you back in the day, man. Hopefully you can get up. We can talk shop when we're up in Brookings one of these years. And
For sure.
for folks who want to get a hold of you, man, or learn more about your company with Dual Boot, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the only social media platform I'm on is LinkedIn. So look me up on
Smart.
LinkedIn, or yeah. I don't do social media. That's just not Hasn't been my thing for years, and that's probably why no one even knows where I'm at these days.
And that's why you read finance books.
Yeah, I guess. I guess so. But yeah, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Love to connect with anybody. Obviously, I really enjoyed my time at South Dakota State. The people, I think, was one of the biggest things that I appreciate. Long term friendships that I always have from my time up there. And yeah, anybody reach out to me on LinkedIn. More than happy to talk, and would love to connect with anybody.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it again. And on that note, go big, go blue,
Go
go Jets.
Jacks.